All right, everybody, we are live with the Working Fans podcast. It's the man they call Dave, and today we got a special guest. This gentleman's been wrestling for about 11 years now. Probably seen him in Ring of Honor and other promotions, and he was kind enough to do our show. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. LSG.
What's up, everybody? Nice to meet you, Dave.
Nah, man, nice to meet you too, man. So I have to say, usually we kind of start off we always want to hear okay, you were a fan or anything like that. But I thought digging a little deeper, I was kind of curious before you even got into wrestling, what was some of your background? Where did you come from? And, any interesting family stories? Just kind of curious to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. Well, my whole life I played sports. So I'm mostly a baseball player, played soccer too, but baseball was my passion. That was my first love. If you asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to do when I grew up, it was probably be a baseball player. Yeah. I didn't even like wrestling yet until probably middle school. So yeah, for me,
go ahead.
For me, it was baseball. Yeah.
Were you a '90s wrestling guy too? Say middle school.
I missed it. No, I missed all that. I saw the tail end of the Attitude Era. I think the first pay-per-view I watched was WrestleMania 17. So
okay.
Yeah, I missed all the crazy stuff. So I got to go back on the network to watch that.
That's a good WrestleMania though to start off with.
I know. Well, that's what got that hooked me right there.
Yeah, somebody recently I saw uploaded on social media. I hadn't seen in a long time, but that Limp Bizkit video with The Rock and Steve Austin. I just go back and I watch it.
That's the best. That hype
just
video.
The looks. Yeah, so crazy.
That time period, the match, the music, everything was perfect.
Yeah, it's so good. Now, so you're getting into wrestling now in middle school, and who are some of the wrestlers maybe that really kind of hook you in?
Definitely love The Rock, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle. Probably those are the three right there that I was always watching on WWE.
Nice. Yeah. Now, was it in ring work that you think really got you at that time, or was it interviews, or both, or
a little bit of both? I love the chemistry between Jericho and The Rock, the banter, but then I also love the in-ring stuff that Jericho and Angle would do. So I always loved both. I never picked one or the other.
Right.
For me, I just had certain guys that were better at this and certain guys were better than that. And I just I could never pick one favorite.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, growing up for me, it was in the 80s. I was the Ultimate Warrior. But then as I got a little older, I was man, I really like Bret Hart. This guy can really wrestle. And then you just kind of find there's different guys that are really good or girls that are good at doing whatever they do, and they'll draw you in. So that's your fandom. And now, what point do you decide, all right, I want to break into this business? And where did you get that idea?
Well, I think I was 16 maybe, and I wanted to go to Raw. I think my mom was I'll get you tickets for your birthday or something, or for Christmas, something like that. And I went to go look up the tickets. She's go handle the tickets and then we'll go. And I go and look and I'm this is way too expensive. I can't go to that. I'm not going to make my mom pay for this. I didn't want to make my mom pay a lot of money. But then on Ticketmaster, there was some other wrestling company on a related event. And it was a link for Ring of Honor Wrestling. Mm-hmm. Final Battle. It was 2005. And I was whoa, what the hell is this? And it was $20. And it was in my hometown, Edison, New Jersey, 10 minutes from my house. And I was what the hell is this? All right, I'm going to go check this out. And then I went, watched that pay-per-view, and my mind was blown. The rest is history. So, I mean, I truly went from it was a full circle thing for me from going to a Final Battle and then, one day wrestling at one.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that was your first time really discovering other promotions too, then?
Yeah. I don't think I even at the time knew what independent wrestling was. I know, the mainstream stuff because obviously WWE at the time, TNA was around. So I was a huge TNA fan as well.
Gotcha.
And at the ROH show, I discovered all this new talent plus a bunch of TNA guys because at the time they were still working with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, as a fan too, that's a mind blow because you get to see these other guys maybe you don't expect. And that's awesome. So, now that's what's kind of triggering you're going to break into business. Who do you end up training with? And, how do you go about picking a wrestling school and how does that happen? For people who don't know.
The first guy that ever trained me, his name was Eric Corvus. He's a local New Jersey guy. He's been wrestling for over 20 years. He was originally with Jersey All Pro Wrestling. And I met him and he had a ring. He was training guys in the summer. This was like back in 2010, I think. Um, and I was like, I couldn't pass that up. I was like, of course I'm going to get in there and roll around, and learned all the basics and the fundamentals. He's a great trainer. So I started with him. And then I had another buddy from high school from the baseball team. He joined a wrestling school. It's called ACE. ACE is located in Union City. It's actually the school where Jay Lethal was from, and AJ Lee. So he joined, and I just tagged along with them a few times, and then I decided to start training with them. That school eventually folded, and then from there we just started getting in the car. Every week we were going to a different wrestling school, because New Jersey, I don't know if you're familiar with the wrestling scene here. It's nuts. It's like, it's pretty oversaturated. At the time, you could probably find 5 or 6 different wrestling schools within an hour drive. So we were just constantly trying to learn from anyone who had a ring. We were going to it and just training. So training with BWO up in Elmwood Park, or the Doc Diamond's Destruction University in Pensacola, New Jersey, or even CZW in Philly. So anything we can get, any training we can get, we just went to it. And then I think it's like 2014. We stumbled on to the Monster Factory, and that was it. We joined the Monster Factory, and I actually got legit, like, actual regimented training.
How long was that whole thing, bouncing from wrestling school?
Probably 2 years.
Wow.
Probably 2 years, just bouncing around, doing really small independent stuff. Real small local indies. I started doing Beyond Wrestling back before it blew up into what it is now. Back when they're doing like closed studio tapings, and if you've ever seen that.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and then we were actually part of like the first ever live events, like with fans. So that was it's cool to be part of that history.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I've been to some of the bigger Beyond shows, and then I saw some of those. Actually, within the last year, someone had sent me some of the early shows they had done.
Yeah,
I want to say it looked like almost out of a barn. One thing I saw.
Yeah, I think the first ever match I had was inside like a warehouse, where they would just tape everything for 2 straight days with all the wrestlers around the ring. It's pretty nuts. But you had guys like Necro Butcher and Matt Cross were there, and Chris Dickinson, but tons of guys. Yeah.
Now, all right. So now, how long were you wrestling before maybe you got on Ring of Honor then?
My first match with Ring of Honor was in January 2015. So I had been wrestling about 3.5, 4 years at that point. I was mostly training at the time with Monster Factory. They had Kevin Kelly come in for a seminar, and we did a promo seminar, and he met a bunch of the guys, and he really took a liking to me, my former tag partner Shaheem Ali, Luis Martinez, who now is Damian Priest,
yes,
and Ian Riccaboni, who many of you know is the lead commentator for Ring of Honor. So he took a liking to us. We were all from the Monster Factory, and we did our ROH tryout, started training there, and it just snowballed into a small role, and from there it became part of ROH.
Now, is that your first time wrestling like for TV?
At Ring of Honor, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, what was the transition, if there was one, to get used to wrestling on TV, with cameras and stuff? Was that
right. So the first ever match I had was for TV. So I had I was in Nashville just doing the ring crew with a bunch of the guys. So, we would basically get in the truck or a van, and you'd caravan to each city. So I'm there with my tag partner. We have no expectations. We're just there. We're trainees at Ring of Honor at the ROH dojo. And part of training at the dojo is going to the events and helping with the ring crew. And Kevin Kelly found me before the show and said, "Hey, do you have your gear with you?" And I'm like, "Of course I do." He's like, "All right, cool. You're on TV tonight. You're in a 6-man tag." I'm like, "What? Like, are you kidding me?" So, I mean, I had never worked in front of the cameras like that. I've obviously like a roaming camera on the ground and like a hard cam, but TV is way different. You've got like 4 cameras rolling at the same time, and you really need to take your time, slow down everything you do. It's completely different. You're not totally, I guess, like focusing on the crowd, but you got to make sure you work those cameras. So it's definitely something. It's a skill you have to work on. And I definitely didn't know what I was doing at first. Not a chance. I had to learn on the job.
Yeah, I always like because there's probably learning how to wrestle, which obviously you're always learning how to match. But then like learning and wrestle in front of TV almost seems like just a separate skill altogether.
Yeah.
And what now? So Ring of Honor, you're starting to wrestle. I mean, at times, I'm sure guys like Jay Lethal eventually.
Yeah.
What's that all like? Now you're starting to get into these bigger names.
Yeah. So like at first I was in a tag team. So I mean, if you know the history of Ring of Honor, they had just they've always had an amazing tag division.
Yes.
Uh, Briscoe Brothers, Young Bucks, Best Friends, Motor City Machine Guns, the Bullet Club was there. Like literally, yeah, a War Machine. Everybody you could think of has passed through Ring of Honor. So we got a chance to wrestle everybody.
Right.
That was really awesome. Like between 2017 to 2019, we hit every tag team. So I got to work with like the best in the world. It wasn't until the pandemic year 2020, the end of the year, and then 2021 with all the bubble tapings that I really got to show what I could do as a singles wrestler. And I got matches with like Tracy Williams, guys like Jay Lethal, all the guys in the Pure Division.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like 2020, 2021 is when I really got to wrestle like one-on-one and really test myself.
I wanted to ask you, because I didn't even think about this. You brought this up when you said War Machine. Yeah. You got to wrestle them in one of their last matches for Ring of Honor, right?
We were the last match.
We were, okay.
Yeah, so we beat them and send them back. I don't know whatever happened to them. I never heard from them again.
Yeah, hope they're all right.
That was the match that got really like cemented Coast to Coast as like one of the tag teams at ROH. That was like that passing the torch moment.
Yeah,
and it happened in Philadelphia at the 2300 Arena. So it was like, Shaheen's from Philly, I'm from Jersey, so we're that was like one of our home venues. So it was just a huge deal for us.
Now, the pandemic. Now, did that? Do you think that hurt some momentum for you?
In a way, it might have with the ROH fans because there wasn't any new content being put out, especially the first. I think it was between like February and September. There was no new content coming out. But I'll say this: a lot of the guys in the ROH roster, they were exclusive, so they weren't wrestling anywhere else besides ROH, which means that whole year they weren't doing much until the bubble started. But me, I wasn't exclusive. I wasn't actually under contract at the time. I was still working independent shows, so I was still active. I was like, I think I took a break between, I want to say maybe April and May, and I was already doing shows in June in the middle of the pandemic, so I was pretty active the whole time. So when I finally got booked for the bubble, this was in October 2020. Yeah, October 2020. I was ready to go. I was full steam, ready for everything. And actually, the first match I had at the bubble was with Jay Lethal.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, so, where were you getting booked around that time? I mean, obviously, I know Florida's running, but there's other places too. Like, where would you anything? And like maybe people wouldn't think. Like, where were you getting your bookings?
Yeah, so around here in New Jersey, we've got Wrestle Pro, which is it's my local promotion here. It's actually right down the street. I'm one of the coaches there.
Okay.
Then you've got Synergy Wrestling that's no longer around, but that was running like at least once a month. And then you have the MFPW, which is the Monster Factory, the school I trained at. That's their home promotion. So they are school, but they're also a promotion. And I was wrestling there very frequently. So we just basically at the time just stayed as safe as possible. I was getting tested every week just to make sure I was good, and I just stayed very active as I could. I didn't want to sit around at home for 6 months like everybody else did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, personally, I own a little business delivering bread, so I was working every day. Yeah. It isn't that bad, but the first maybe the first month, like none of us know. Like, I don't know.
Right? Yeah, I remember stuff got canceled, and I was in New England at a show, and I think it was in middle of March, and we were all looking at each other weird, like we didn't know if we should shake hands. It was so new. We didn't really understand it yet. We no one wanted to shake hands. Everyone was fist bumping or hitting elbows. Like we were all like, I think the world's ending. We may not see each other again. Like it was very weird.
It was, yeah. I still remember. I think I was sitting home, and we had done an interview with somebody. It was like a phone interview, and then I got home, and NBA had canceled its season, and Tom Hanks got it, and I was like, this is going to be interesting. And then it was like literally the next day delivering bread, I saw stores like completely empty. And I'm like, huh. And then it was the next day, and I'm like, okay, no, this is definitely something. This is something, yeah.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah, interesting time. But So now, actually, too, bringing up the pandemic. So you're doing matches in the bubble. One of the things I heard, I was wondering if it was similar for you. I don't know about the Ring of Honor ring. Did the bumps hurt more not having the fans there in that arena? Was it strange? Obviously, I would think it'd be strange, but
Yeah, I've heard. I know what you mean. When you don't have the adrenaline getting pumped by like the sound of the crowd, yeah, it that happens, especially with a small crowd or no crowd at all.
right.
You kind of feel everything, you hear everything. But I'll say this: I got really used to it, and I think I made the most of it. So I
Yeah.
use it to my advantage. So having no crowd there, the cool thing is that you get to really tell a story and have that camera hear everything you want to say. Sometimes you're yelling in the ring or saying things and it doesn't get picked up because it's too loud.
Right.
Without the crowd working in the bubble, you're beating the hell out of somebody and you're talking to the camera and you're talking smack. Like everything is heard and it enhances the product. I think it almost looks more intense. And you can't hide anything. Like everything you do out there, it's exposed. The fans can see it, they can hear it. So I loved that challenge. And I mean, I did bubble taping. I must have done like 8 bubble taping. So I definitely got used to it after like the first one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would think too. Just an opinion, but like I
Yeah.
thought Ring of Honor in terms of those empty arena, the pure did it probably better than anybody with the pure tournament. Like it was really felt like something different, and yeah, those matches you mentioned they did feel a little more intense, and there was a lot more. It felt like reading people's faces and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I love the setup that ROH did. So, I'll always give them props for that. I think they handled it the best out of everyone. They were, obviously with like the safety protocols, they did great. But then also with the setup, the way that we had the arena set up, the closed off, no crowd and having like the LED screens and everything. It just
Yeah,
looked, the presentation was awesome. I know
yeah.
like Impact did it and WWE did it too, but I just think ROH, I think they excelled. Like they really, really did it well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They did. I thought they did it better than anybody at that time. As far as just pure empty arena matches
Right.
go, from a creative standpoint. And they had a lot of those pure matches they gave you like almost like the UFC, I thought. You had these little like profiles of the wrestlers before the matches, and then we would lead to the match.
Yeah, that was the best thing too, because it's crazy to say this, but I spent probably 4 years in ROH before people really got to know who I was.
Hmm.
At the time, sometimes you just get lost in the shuffle, especially if you're one of 10 tag teams. Sometimes footage doesn't make air. Some of your promos don't make the cut for TV because there's not enough time. A lot of things happen that factor into that. But the bubble really helped me because it got, I guess, the audience to really get to know who I was. So not only with the in-ring work, but like you said, the profiles, the promos we did were awesome. The way they were edited and set up, like just it totally up my alley. Like, kind of like that realism, adding that realism to wrestling. I love that, and I felt like it brought back the foundation of what ROH is built on, and pure wrestling. And you have your characters, but you also have like that motivation to win and to be the best wrestler in the world. Yeah.
Are there anybody you take motivation from? Maybe so when you're wrestling, you hear people too. Like I just heard William Regal talk about this, where look elsewhere sometimes besides wrestling when you're working on who you are in the business, whether it's character or whatever it may be. Do you have other people like I'm not trying to give a but like is there
Right.
something that you go, oh okay, like I can kind of take a little of this or a little of that?
I don't actively think about that. I mean, I think I love that. There is a character on TV right now that I really like that I want to start incorporating into like the way I guess my swagger, like the way I handle myself, especially
Mhm.
like when I'm working as a heel. Is Billy the Butcher from The Boys. I don't know if you ever watched The Boys.
Oh,
Carl,
what? I haven't, but a bunch of friends of mine keep
yeah,
raving about that.
Carl Urban. He's like just the man. He's like he's just got this demeanor about him. He's just a badass. So I love that about him and the way he delivers his lines and things like that. So
See,
that's
well,
something I'll probably
weird.
take into account. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I because I've been watching something, and everybody tells me I got to get on that because I'm a
Absolutely.
Marvel guy, DC guy, and I
Me
like,
too. So
yeah,
yeah, you gotta watch it. It's so good.
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I had a couple fan questions here too.
Yeah.
Craziest gimmick match you ever had?
Oof, craziest gimmick match. I've had a lot. I actually just did a cage match for the first time.
Huh.
I've wrestled for 11 years and just had the first cage match.
Yeah.
So I just did that last week. That was pretty insane. I'm still feeling some of the effects of that. I'm all cut up and
Mm.
bruised. The guy I wrestled had like 13 stitches in his head. That was pretty wild. So I wrestle often in Alaska. I've already wrestled there 7 times. I've done 7 tours already. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the first ever ladder match in Alaska, the
Oh,
first ever Singapore cane match in Alaska, and the first ever dog collar match in Alaska. So those three plus this cage match recently, there's probably the craziest gimmick matches that I've had so far.
now what is so like I'll ask this in this, and I've talked to people who wrestled in certain areas of Memphis, and they would tell me that it's still very like old school down there. The fans react, that all the heels get booed. I mean, what's Alaska? What like is it similar or is it more new school or?
It's actually more new school than I thought it would be.
Mhm.
I know for a fact, like when you go to Anchorage, it's a bigger city. You
Yeah.
show up and you've got people wearing AEW T-shirts,
Okay.
independent wrestling. They're in the know, so they know what's going on. But then as soon as you leave Anchorage, we do some shows outside, like kind of far out from there. For example, one place it's called Soldotna. It's 3 hours away from Anchorage, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. These fans, they're not really exposed to wrestling, so they react to everything. Like you get the rowdiest crowds, the kids are going wild. Um, it's a big MMA and like wrestling town,
Okay. Yep.
so you get these dudes really riled up. Like it's pretty easy to piss them off. I love it.
Yeah, I think Dana White might have done a few looking for a fights in Alaska, so that makes sense. I think.
Yeah. They're looking for a fight when you go intermission. There's a table, someone selling guns during intermission. There's a gun vendor. I'm like, I'm just trying to sell my T-shirts and my pictures, but this guy has guns. Like, what the hell?
That's a different world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, that's not happening at like a Ring of Honor show or
No,
yeah.
I'm not selling a rifle at an ROH show.
Now, speaking of guns, I don't know, but another question I had was favorite hobbies besides wrestling. Like anything else that maybe you do in your off time that you really enjoy.
Yeah, I got a few actually. Let's see. Well, I'm a baseball player still. I still play. I play on a team. I'm a third baseman. I pitch sometimes too. So baseball is a huge part of my life. I'm a big Mets fan, so I love going to Mets games. I'm an artist as well. I don't do it as much anymore, but I loved drawing as a kid, especially like you mentioned liking superheroes, Marvel and DC comics and stuff. That was my inspiration for like getting into artwork. So I did a lot of drawing, and now I do more gear design. So wrestlers will ask me to like draw up their outfits and stuff like that, and all the gear that I wear, anything that you've ever seen me wear, it's something I designed myself. So that's a passion of mine. And then actually, I'm a big collector, so comic books, figures. So like I've got a pretty sweet collection of like statues and figures and stuff like that. That really like became a thing during the pandemic when I had nothing else to do. Yeah.
What kind of, if you don't mind, I'm curious, what kind of
Yeah.
figure besides is it like more like Marvel DC or you have other stuff too? Like I mean, what do you
I'd say mostly it's like Marvel Legends line or the DC's McFarlane's. But I'm actually a huge GI Joe fan, so I got a ton of GI Joe. Yeah, I collected GI Joe as a kid. Like that's something my dad got me into. He was in the military. He's an army guy. I was born, right off outside of a base in Germany. So like growing up, like GI Joe was a big deal for me. And now GI Joe just came out with like a great line of figures. So like it's a little nostalgic for me, but I love collecting them. And yeah, I've got a pretty sweet collection of those that's still growing and growing. I don't know what to do with that. I don't have any room. Like I need to move. Like I need like a room dedicated to like wrestling and toys and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome. I think I just heard on a podcast somebody was saying that like they were talking about their collection of like action figures and stuff like that. And somebody was tipping off. I don't know if the guy was a writer or a wrestler, but he said, he said, your girlfriend was saying she has to get you out of that. And he's like, he's not going to last long. They ended up breaking up. And he was like, that was it. He's like, I'm not getting rid of my action figures or anything. And I always thought, that's pretty cool. I think I lost you. Let's see if you come back. We'll kill it for a few minutes here. If anyone's listening, we'll do a little We treat. Oh, there you are.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
I lost you. I was
yeah,
gonna
power went out.
I was like, no worries. I was like, we'll give a few minutes. I was just gonna resend the link. So all
Okay.
good.
Can you hear me? You good?
Yeah, we're good. We can hear each other great. So we're all good. So yeah, collections. Now you've been doing this for about 11 years. So well, actually, you know what? This would be topical. We don't have to deep dive into this because nothing we know. But like the stories that just broke out, let's say like with Vince McMahon and everything
Yeah.
going on, you know, we're not gonna get. But like when you hear and you wonder, like Vince stepping down temporarily, as what do you like? Do you ever have a thought? Like for me, I'm like, is this going to change the business possibly a year down the road, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
do you ever think about stuff like that when you're seeing stuff like the landscape, like even AEW coming out?
Right. Right. Yeah. And the immediate news, like that's something I saw this morning was at the gym. Your immediate reaction is like shock, a little bit of shock. You're like, whoa, what the hell's going to happen? Especially like I'm already like my thought immediately goes to like my friends that are down there that work for WWE. I'm like, wonder what's going on with them, and hopefully they're good, and hopefully nothing changes too much. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I mean, I wish nothing for but the best for everybody who works there, and but you never know when there's dramatic changes like this, especially with leadership. Things can change. Like you never know. Like maybe changing leadership changes relationships with other company. Maybe whoever steps in wants to work with AEW, wants to do stuff with New Japan. Like you really have no idea how what the next person in line has, I guess, set for their future. Like it really depends on what the leader's goals are. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, let's start making some predictions and check in like a year or two.
Yeah. I was talking to a fan today too. We were just asking that, like, and it is interesting to say, like, because, like, to your point too, right? I think a lot of people worry, but it's like, in the long run, small things that happen sometimes turn into a positive. Like, you could have this thing, and you're like, it's going to, then something great happens, and like the Cody Rhodes even, and then
I mean, for me, the most relevant example for me is seeing all these guys leave ROH. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So I guess they're going to go do their own thing. And it's kind of like this feeling, leading up to them leaving. I was like, oh, these guys are going to leave and go do something else. All Out already happened. I was like, okay, that was like their test run. They're going to go do something else and it's going to change everything. And, and look what happened. AEW was born. So yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Are there some companies out there that you keep? I mean, we're not, but like, are there some companies you keep out there besides AEW and WWE that let me like to work for them right now?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to work for New Japan. So probably the first step would be to work for New Japan Strong. Even Noah, I've got a couple friends that just got announced they're going over to Pro Wrestling Noah. That's huge. I would love to go back to Mexico. I've only been there once. So I'd love to do a tour down there. I've got a bunch of friends and colleagues that wrestle there. Yeah, I mean, wrestling internationally is like, for me, that's like top priority at the moment. Like I'm going back to Germany in less than a month, and I'll be there for 3.5 weeks. So like to me, that's like getting to travel and just see new places is probably the most important thing for me.
Yeah, and I imagine it's probably one of the most beneficial things as a performer, right? Getting out there and picking up different things.
Yeah, picking up new things, training with new people, wrestling new opponents, and then also exposing yourself to a new audience. So I went 4 years ago to Germany, made new fans, and they've been with me ever since.
Yeah.
So my goal is to go back, get even more new fans, and take them along the ride to the next place to go.
All right. Yeah. Well, so 2 more things then, I guess we'll just say, what are some of your goals? Obviously, New Japan Strong, continue to tour internationally. Any other goals you want to expand on, whether it be long-term or other short-term?
Yeah, I guess, short-term is probably just travel as much as possible, especially this year, just do as much as I can to build my brand and get out there. Hopefully get to wrestle in a couple other countries while I'm in Germany. I'll be there for 3.5 weeks. So check off some more places. I've already got some cool things lined up for the fall. So I'll get to check off some more states. I've already wrestled in, I think, about 30 states. So one of the long-term goals is hit all 50.
Yeah.
51 if you include Puerto Rico. So that's going to be definitely on the bucket list. And then, like a lot of guys, I would love to get a contract. I would try to get a contract somewhere, make this full-time living and just fully engulf myself into wrestling.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're still young, and you have about 10, 11 years now,
Yeah.
and you're trying to make it out. So I feel like as long as you're in good shape, like that's a real possibility. Yeah. Like, yeah. If you think about like back in the older days too, how long did it take for a lot of guys to get in, right? So
I had someone ask me yesterday, so how long are you going to wrestle for? Like, when do people actually retire? I'm like, well, no one ever actually retires. But what I was telling them was like, hey, back in the day, guys weren't hitting their prime until they were 40 years old. So,
yeah. And look at like you still see once in a while like Mike Jackson out there doing it.
Oh,
He's like
yeah.
70 years old.
Oh, yeah.
You're like one of the
I want to wrestle him. Mike Jackson, I want you. I want to wrestle him. If you have a Twitter.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for.
I gotta find him.
Let's see if you can find him. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Any social media or anything you want to promote? Hit us with it. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So my handles are pretty much the same all across the board. It's at Leon St. Giovanni. Just look up LSG or the Ace of Space. You will find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I even got a TikTok now. I don't know what to do with it. I'm gonna try to figure that out. But I'm definitely going to be vlogging my trip to Germany. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be posting some cool stuff there because I'm going to be traveling, wrestling, and coaching. So I'm going to have a little bit of everything in there. Probably maybe some vlogging, all the food out there. We'll see. But yeah, check that out. I'll be with WXW from July 15th through August 8th. We have a bunch of cool shows. So check out WXWnow.com for all that. And then look out for WrestlePro Alaska. That's going to be very busy this fall.
All right, LSG, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate having you, man, and look forward